Hilchis Sanhedrin v'inshlam surim Perek Chamisha v'Esrim. So in Perek Chedal we learned that there's different things that a dayan could do, Bezdin and a dayan could do, even though it's not mamish al piyatera, in the sense that it's not the halacha psuk of the Torah, but he has a right, l'migdar milsa, to do things, to even to give malchus and to kill, and to take away people's money, and to all kinds of things where a dayan has authority to do things, which is in order, l'migdar milsa, to make sure that the Torah is upheld in the right way. However, he himself shouldn't act in a way that he's balabatoving over the people. That's a din. Because he has a right, he has an authority to do things with migdal milsa. But on the other hand, also l'dayan linig b'srora al tzibur ubigasis aruach. In other words, he himself shouldn't be acting b'srora al tzibur. In other words, even though he has this authority, but he shouldn't act like he's a balabos over the tzibur. Ubigasis aruach with gaiva elabanova v'yira. The whole parnas amatul emi yisrael al tzibur shalei l'shem shemayim. When there's an emi yisrael al tzibur which is not l'shem shemayim, is nenash, he gets an einish, and ve'einer reya ben talmid chacham, and he doesn't see a ben talmid chacham shenam alochin yiru anoshim, people who are afraid of him, and le'yira kol chachmelev, as a result of yiru anoshim, so it comes out that le'yira kol chachmelev, he doesn't have any children talmid chacham. So b'kitzur, on one end a dayan is very authoritative. He's in a position where he can do things which is very authoritative over the tzibur. But on the other hand, he shouldn't be noyeg b'srara or b'gasis aruach. He should be noyeg b'yira and also b'yira u'ba'anova. V'chein halacha beis v'chein also le'linig b'em kalos reish. He shouldn't be disrespectful. He shouldn't be act with kalos reish towards the people. Afal b'shein ha'moretz. And therefore, v'leyifsa al roshi am kedesh. There used to be vices. People would sit on the floor, and then people would have to walk through, so they would walk over them. So a dayan shouldn't be walking over the am kedesh, because that's disrespectful to the am kedesh. Afal b'shem medietus u'shveilim, but nevertheless, b'nei Avram nisu v'yankivein b'tzivus Hashem sheheitzi meretz Mitzrayim b'keir gadol b'yad chazaka. So therefore, he has to treat them respectfully. That's number one. And then secondly, the soivel Torah chatzibur umason. He has to tolerate the Torah chatzibur, the umason, the load that the people have over him. It's difficult for a dayan that people come and they ask and they bother him on all kinds of things. They want from him all kinds of things. So he has to tolerate. He has to be tolerant to their needs, even though it may be very difficult for him. The soivel Torah chatzibur umason. Like a nursemaid carries the infant, that's the nursing infant. So that's how Moshe Rabbeinu carried the Yidden, which was maybe difficult, but on the other hand, he was tolerant of them. That this dayan should also tolerate the tzibur. He should also tolerate kashiyisei mesayenik, like Moshe Rabbeinu did. Once the Eibishter sent Moshe to Mitzrayim, Namar, Vayitzavim al b'nei Yisrael, is Omer mipi Kabbalah. Chazal say, what does it mean by Yitzavim al b'nei Yisrael? She'omer lem l'meish l'aren al menashi mekalim neschem v'seikel neschem avonim. Knows you should go there even if they might be cursing you and maybe even throwing stones at you. You have to realize that it's your obligation to go ahead and lead the Yidden, despite the fact, a person can say, listen, I want to lead them, but if they're going to be so difficult, I'm not going to want to do it. So and now we say no, that a dayan is supposed to realize this responsibility, and even though it's difficult for him, and it's a Torah chatzibur and mason, but that's part of it. He has an authority, he has a job to do, and he has to be authoritative when it's covered chatzibur. He himself is not supposed to act with srara and with gasas aruach. He has to act respectfully, and he has to also be willing to do this obligation of being a dayan, even though if it would involve teirach or mason, just like the Eibishter said to Moshe Rabbeinu, even if it involves that the Yidden will be mekabel them and throw on them avonim. Halacha Gimel. Kederech shenestav hadayin lidnik b'midazu. So on one hand, the dayan is mechuyev to tolerate the Yidden and to noig with them with respect. Is kach nestav atzibur lidnik kavod b'dayin. So the tzibur is mechuyev to noig kavod b'dayin. The dayan is mechuyev to noig kavod b'tzibur, but the tzibur is mechuyev to noig kavod b'dayin. Shnei v'atzav eschem zu azhara l'tzibur v'atzava eschem. To the Yidden, zu azhara l'tzibur shetia emas hadayin alein. They should have respect for the dayin, v'li yizbazi b'fneim, and in order to help that the people should have respect for them, for the dayan, so the dayan shouldn't do things which cause him busha in front of them. He has to act in a respectful way, that it shouldn't cause, that the people shouldn't have respect for him. And as a result of that, he shouldn't be doing work in front of three people. So he shouldn't become mevuzah b'fneim. So in other words, on one hand, he's not supposed to act b'srora and b'gasus haruach. On the other hand, they are supposed to, and he's not allowed to act with them b'kalos reish. On the other hand, they're b'chuyev to be mechaber him, and they have to have covet for him. They have to have yira for him. So in order for that to happen, he can't do things which will cause them to be nizbaza b'fneim. So therefore, he shouldn't do work b'fnei hatzibur, because that'll cause that he'll be nisbaz b'fneim. And this is all part of the din, because it's important that the tzibur should have covet for the dain, and therefore they should have made it for the dain. Now, if we're saying that even to do work in front of three people is also is kal v'chemer lechel v'lishtes u'lishtaker b'fnei rabbim, to go ahead and eat and drink and to become intoxicated, to drink, to become shikar b'fnei rabbim u'b'knesses amioris u'b'sudas mereis, and where amiratzim are gathered and stam sudas mereis is certainly also. Oylehem lo'isam adayonim shenagu b'kach me'elben toiris meisha shebizu dineo v'ishpilu ad offer. This about adoretz, this hanhoga of going to a suda and being eating and drinking and lishtaker, is that something which causes an elbin of Teiras Meisha? They will mavaza the dinim of Teira, v'ishpilu ad oretz, v'higiyu ad offer, v'gormu lehamro, l'bnei bneim, be'elam hazel le'elam haba. So that's something which is a very not good anhoga for a person that's a dayan to go ahead and to become shikr together with Ami Oretz, and that causes hashpala of the covet of Teira. Halacha hei, osur linig kalas reish. So that's to talk about the din that you have to have the recheres for the dayan, you have to have covet for the dayan. The dayan has to act in a way that people should have covet for him. And the way is that he shouldn't be do malacha b'fneim, b'fnei shleisha, and certainly he shouldn't be oichel b'sheisa and nishtaker in the chevras of Mereis and Amoritz. Osur linig kalas reish b'shliach bezin. It's another din that someone that's a shliach bezin, so you also now let to act with kalas reish towards him, you have to have respect towards the shliach bezin. And also, when a shliach comes back and he says testimony of what happened, so he's neman kishnayim l'inyan hanidui, as far as nidui is concerned. Shim Omar pleni hiklani. The shliach bezin comes back to the dayan. He says that this and this person acted me disrespectfully, or he spoke disrespectfully about the dayan. I called him to a dintera and he says he's not coming, he doesn't want to come to a dintera. Is Mishamt Neisial Piv, so Bezdin could put this person in Cherem based on the testimony of this Shliach Bezdin, even though it's only 1/8. Aval ein kesun ol of Pischa, at sheyaveu shnayim v'yoidu shenim nalovi. Now there's a musig which we'll learn behemshach of a Pischa where you write a star. There's what's a tivei and a nitva. The tivei is wanting someone to a dintera. Now, when this person doesn't want to go to the Dintera, so then Bezdin will write him a star pischa, and that star pischa will be a star which says that this person was being tevei, this person to a Dintera, and the nitva is l'cherim until he comes to a Dintera. Now, lepeil, when the nitva does come to a Dintera, the nitva has to pay for this pischa, because of him they wrote the pischa. So really, writing a pischa is really a din which is going to cause a din of dinimominus. It's going to take money from the nitva. So therefore, you don't write the pischa, which will eventually cause the nitva to have to pay for the pischa, unless there's two edim. Masha'inkin, to put him into nidui, into shamta, without writing a pischa, that they do based on the testimony of the shliach bezdin, even though there's no two edim. That's what he's saying. Aval in case no pischa, based on what the shliach bezdin said, you'll put him into chayrim. But you're not going to write a pischa. The fact that the Shleach Bezdin is coming back to Bezdin and saying things bad about the nitva, doesn't go into the Gerah of Lashon Hara, and because this is Letzera, this is something which is important. So someone that was Mitzayer Shleach Bezdin, So that also they have rishus to be makas mardus. Now, how do they know that they were mitzayir shliach bezin? Is the shliach bezin nema to say that this person was mitzayir me and therefore he's deserving of makas mardus? Doesn't say clear in Rambam. The Rambam said before that a shliach bezin is neman in order that it should put b'shamta. Then the Rambam says if someone's mitzayir shliach bezin, so then bezin has a right to go ahead and hit a makas mardus. Doesn't say clearly in Rambam if the fact that he was mitzayir shliach bezin, you could accept the testimony of the shliach bezin that this person was mitzayir him in order to give makas mardus. Halacha zayin. Now, when a shliach bezin comes and once calls someone to a din Torah, it has to be very clear that he's coming b'shem a bezin. He's not coming b'shem a private individual. So if the shliach bezin comes and he says that this and this person, which is a dayan, is calling him to a din Torah, that person could be thinking, maybe this person is calling me to a din Torah. He's not the bezin. Mele, I'm not mechuyev to come. So that doesn't really warrant that he should go into a shamto and he should write a pischa on him. Only if he knows for a fact and knows it's clear that he understood that he's being called by a bezin and lepel he didn't come, so then that's when he deserves a shamta, and that's when you could write a pischa on him with the shamta. That's this halacha. Halacha zayin. Shliach bezin she'omar pleini sholchani. He said pleini sholchani is calling you to come to a din Torah. And he said it b'shem echad min hadayonim. He didn't say it b'shem all of the dayonim. He said it in the name of pleini sholchani. And lepel leirotze baldin lavi, the baldin didn't come. There's ain't case no of pischa shel shamta. You don't write because he didn't come when the shliach bezin came b'shem echad min hadayonim. That's not enough to warrant to write a pischa shel shamta. Achiyem b'shem shloshtam. He has to come and say that there's a bezin sitting and they want you to come to a din Torah. And then if he doesn't come, so then that warrants that he should go to write a pischa shel shamta, to write this letter of shamta. Now, b'medvar mamurim, that we say that if he said it only b'shem echad min hadayonim, that doesn't warrant to write a shamta, is shaholach hashliach b'yem she'eni yadua l'shivas hadayonim. He went on a day which is not really known that that's the days that dayonim convened to bezin. Avol b'yem hayadua shadayonim yoshu beiladin. If it's a day that everyone knows that this is the day that the bezin sits down to din, is hakal yedin shekol at dayonim mekubatzim. Everyone understands that when you say b'shem one dayan, it means because the dayonim are sitting, and the kol at dayonim mekubatzim. Avol pi shebo hashliach b'shem echad. Even though the shliach came and he said it in the name of one of the dayonim, but everyone understands that this one dayan is sitting together with the other dayonim. He's the one that told it to the shliach bezin. Mele is kilu ba b'shem shloshtam, and Mele, if he doesn't come, so then he gets a star pischa. Now mi shishol, now the Rambam speaks about a shal pischa. Halacha ches. Mi shishol chulei bezin. Someone bezin sends him to come to a din Torah. V'lei bo ledin and l'peil, he doesn't come to din. Is menad nesi, is put into cherem, to a nidui. And the case of a pischa, and they write a pischa, which is a star, giving to the tiveya this star to say that his nitva was put into cherem. And the nois and schara sefer, and the schara sefer really has to be paid by the nitva. Now the nitva right now maybe he's not paying it, but once he comes eventually to the din Torah, so that's when he's going to have to pay the schara sefer. When he actually comes, so then koyrin a pischa, that is when you tear up this pischa. Now, Kosvo of Pischa, Mipnei Sheli Kibul Adin. He did come to the din Torah, but Lepel, they wrote a Pischa, they put him into Nidui, because he said he's not accepting the din. And those the Bezdin Paskin, he said he's not paying. He said clearly he's not going to listen to the din. So that's also a reason to put him into Nidui. Kosvo of Pischa, Mipnei Sheli Kibul Adin, Kivin Sha'amar Hareini Mekabel Adin, so that's already clear in Nidui. So once he says Hareini Mekabel Adin, even though he didn't do yet what Bezdin said, but once he said Areini Mekabel Adin, so then Koirin Niduyev. Now Kovali Bezin's man Sheyovi Hayem V'lei Bo Kolesi Hayem. Bezin gave him a certain day. They told him today, come today, and he didn't come that day. This case no Pischol Erev. So since he didn't come all day, Bezin demanded he comes today, and he didn't come. So Erev they write a Pischa. Amedvar Mamurim B'Shahayi B'Medina. He was in the Medina. Omaret V'lei Bo. Bezin sent him to come. He didn't come. Avalim Hoyi B'Kfarim. He was not really in the Medina, he was in the villages of the Yetziv, and he was going in and out, he's traveling. So then, they give him Monday, Thursday, and Monday. In other words, they tell him he could come either the next Monday, or the following Thursday, or the following Monday. That's when he could come. The Im Shalom Yem Sheni, and if the second Monday, in other words, went by a Bahab, a Monday, Thursday, and Monday, and he still didn't come, is ein case no pischa ad lemacher. So then you wait with writing the pischa and the day after that Monday on Tuesday, and that's when Bezdin writes on this person a pischa. Halacha tes. Ein keven zman lebe me nissen v'lebe me tishrei. In order to want someone to come to a dintera, you're not kavei azman, not benissen, not betishrei. Mipnei sha'am truden b'meh. These people are very busy, and also v'lebe erev Shabbos, v'lebe erev Yontif. Also, because people are busy, so there's no time to come to a dintera. Aval koivin benissen shiyavi achra nissen, or a betishrei shiyavi achra tishrei. So you don't want from him to come in Nissen or in Tishrei, but you could notify him during Nissen to come after Nissen. Set up a date to come after Nissen, or in Tishrei to come after Tishrei. Aval ein koivin be'erev Shabbos shiyavi achra Shabbos, mipnei sha'akel truden be'erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos vices the tirda is more than in Nissen and Tishrei, so therefore in Nissen and Tishrei there's no time to come to a dintera, but at least you could go ahead and tell the person that he should come to a dintera after Nissen and Tishrei. But in Erev Shabbos people are so torud, and therefore you can't even speak to him about coming next week. So therefore, you don't call him to a dintera on Erev Shabbos. You don't even notify him on Erev Shabbos about a dintera that is going to come later. Halacha yud. Misha hu b'medina, and b'halach shliach bezin v'lei motzei. He looked for him and he didn't find him. Is ein keven lizman lovei ad sheyim tzeis hashliach v'yemel. You have to find him and tell him. Haya b'kvar chutz l'medina. If Lepeli was b'kvar chutz l'medina, im darki lovei b'eisa hayem. The derech was that he should come that day. In other words, they're expecting him back in the Medina that day. Is Eimer Ashliach afilu lechad min ashchenim or afilu isha? The shliach could tell one of his neighbors, a woman, im yavi pleni, if when that person comes, heidiyu shebezn kovel izman sheyavi hayim lebezn, that today he should come to Bezdin. V'im leiba minad nesil erev, because we assume that he came and he was notified. And he didn't come, and therefore he's put into cherem. In other words, even though if he's in town, so you don't go tell anybody to find him. The shliach has to find him. But if lepel he's not here, and we know that he's coming back today, you could go ahead and tell a neighbor, even if this neighbor is isha, that when this person comes, notify him that Bezdin is expecting him, is being mazmin him ledin, and he should come. And if he doesn't come, we could assume that he was notified and he didn't come, and therefore menat neisa. Now, b'medvar mamurim that we could assume he was notified, and therefore menadnei say b'she'ein haderech shedarki leilich ba'al mekein Bezdin. It wasn't expected that this person should be passing Bezdin to come home. So therefore, we could assume that this neighbor, you asked that neighbor to notify him that Bezdin is calling him, so the Bezdin will make sure to the neighbor will make sure to notify him, because Bezdin, a shliach Bezdin came and told the neighbor to notify him, so we assume that the neighbor notified him, and Memela, he didn't come, so therefore he's in Benidu. But if this person, his normal way of coming home would be through the passing Bezdin. Avalim hoyedarke aleim, the derech was to go through Bezdin, the place where the Bezdin is, and that's how he would go home, is eminat nese. We don't put him in chayrim. There's the fact that he told the neighbor to tell him is not enough. Why? Because over here there's a concern. There's a concern. Maybe the shchenim didn't tell him. He passed by the Bezdin. I'm sure he went into Bezdin. He was already nifter. And when we saw him coming from the direction of Bezdin, and therefore, since he came from the direction of Bezdin, so therefore they didn't tell him. So B'kitzer, the shliach Bezdin can't rely that the shchenim are going to tell this person if this person passes by the place of Bezdin. And therefore, the shliach Bezdin has to tell him himself. That's din number one. So the din is that normally, if the person is b'medina, the shliach Bezdin, tell him himself. If this person is not b'medina, you could notify ask the shchenim to know. If you know that he's coming today, you could ask the shchenim to notify him. And if he doesn't come that day, so we could assume that he was notified and he didn't come, and therefore he's put into nidui. However, if he passes by the Bezdin, then if his derech is to pass by the Bezdin, so then we could not rely that the shchenim are actually going to tell him, because the shchenim may rely that he already found out about it and he was already in Bezdin, he was already nifter. So therefore, in order to notify him, the shliach Bezdin has to notify him himself. That's din number one. V'chein im leibol medina ad l'mocher. If we know for a fact that he didn't come to Bezdin, to Medina ad l'mocher, or we knew that he was coming tomorrow, and now you went ahead, the shliach Bezdin went to these neighbors, said this person is coming tomorrow, and Lepel notify him that that Bezin is calling him, is then ein semchon el hashchenim, because over here Shem is shokchu hashchenim v'lo yamru. So again, you can't rely on the shchenim. So if you go to the shchenim, you're expecting him today, and Itaka came today, so you could assume that the shchenim told him, and therefore if he didn't come, he's put in the shamta. If the pale that he came, you told the shchenim to tell him tomorrow, when he comes tomorrow, or you know for a fact that he came tomorrow, so then you can't rely that the shchenim told him, because chances are the shchenim forgot. And also, if he passed by the Bezin, so chances are that the Shchenim thought he passed by the Bezin. So Bepashtas, he went into the Bezin, and he was already nifter, so there's no Indian of us telling him about the Azmona to Bezin. Halacha Yudalef. Mi yishabol the Bezin. V'kibul adin. V'omru lei l'shal. They told him to pay. And v'holach v'lei shilim. Ein menad nesi. Ad shemasrin bei sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. Have to be masrim sheni, and then again you masrim again on chamishi, and then again on sheni. And then the acher kach, and if he still doesn't pay, menad nesi ad sheyitin mashu chayiv. V'im oma shleishim yem v'lei tov niduyav. So then it goes from a nidu to a machrim nesi. Then he goes from a nidu into a cherem, which a cherem is more severe than a nidu. The Rambam in Hilchas Talmud Torah, in Perek Zayin, Halacha Dal and Halacha Hey, discusses the difference between a nidu and a cherem. There he says, a menuda is also l'saper, or l'chabes, ki'ovel, and you're not allowed to make zimon on him, and you can't be part of a minyan, and you're not allowed to sit with him ba'arba ames. But on the other hand, he's allowed to teach other people, sheinu lacherim, and you're allowed to teach him, and he's allowed to work for other people, and that's the dinim of a nidim. Masha'inkin yasser olav muchrim, he says over there in Halacha Hey, that he's not allowed to teach other people, and you're not allowed to teach him, he's allowed to learn for himself. So this chumris in a cherem as opposed to a nidu. So the first 30 days, he's been nidu. If lepel, he doesn't correct his ways, after the 30 days of being a nidui, so then he goes into a more severe state, which is a mukhram, being a cherem.